Commissioner Charles.
Present.
Commissioner Gershenson. Commissioner Gingell. Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Joliet.
Here.
Commissioner Kokendorfer.
Here.
Commissioner Kowal.
Here.
Commissioner Kuhn.
Here.
Commissioner Long.
Here.
Commissioner Lubes.
Here.
Commissioner Markham.
Here.
Commissioner McGillivray.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Moss.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Powell.
Here.
Commissioner Spiz.
Present.
Commissioner Weipert. Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Commissioner Cavell.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 present. You have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The invocation for this evening will be led by the Honorable Bob Hoffman, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone can please rise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I said a prayer for you today, and I know he must have heard. I felt the answer in my heart, although he spoke not a word. I didn't ask for wealth or fame. I knew you wouldn't mind. I asked him to send treasures of a far more lasting kind. I asked that he be near you at the start of each new day, to grant you health and blessings and friends to share your way. I asked for happiness for you in all things great and small, but it was for his loving care I prayed most of all. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Next up, we've got approval of the minutes from the February 24th meeting. Moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Long. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Let the record reflect that the minutes are approved unanimously. Next, we have approval of the agenda. Moved by Commissioner Nelson, seconded by Commissioner Joliet. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Let the record also reflect that the agenda is approved unanimously. And that will bring us to a couple communications. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chair, you have two communications. The first is dated March 10th to the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. Ladies and gentlemen, I am hereby appointing the following individuals to serve on the Oakland County Community Corrections Advisory Board for a 4-year term beginning March 1st, 2022, ending February 28th, 2026. Representing the County Sheriff's Department, County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Kathleen Mickens. Representing the County Prosecuting Attorney, Karen McDonald, with Justin Davis as alternate. Representing Chiefs of City Police Departments, Chief Thomas Lindberg. Representing Circuit Court Judges, the Honorable Mary Ellen Brennan, with James Patterson as an alternate. Representing District Court Judges, the Honorable Kelly Costin. Probate Judge Court appointment is vacant. Representing the County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Cavell. Representing Behavioral Health Care Providers, Christy Schmeige. Representing Defense Counsel, Jack Holmes. Representing Workforce Development, Liz Rivard Weston. Representing the business community, currently vacant. Communications Media, vacant. Representing the Department of Corrections Probation, Britton Washington. Representing the general public, Honorable Fred Mester, retired, Earl Burton, Julia Gallagher as an alternate, and Shelley Weisberg. Your confirmation of this appointment is respectfully requested. Sincerely, David T. Woodward, Chairman, Oakland County Board of Commissioners. And finally, March 10th, 2022, to the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. Ladies and gentlemen, please accept this letter as notification that I have exercised the authority granted to the chairperson of the board to approve grant applications in excess of $50,000 for the purposes of meeting a submission deadline. Due to the grantor deadlines and the board's grant submission process and calendar, it was not possible to submit the application for full board consideration in accordance with our normal procedures. The application was reviewed by all appropriate county departments. I have authorized the submission of the following grant application. Name, Children's Savings Accounts Pilot Program, Workforce Development, in the amount of $500,000. Grant application deadline was March 3rd, 2022. Sincerely, David T. Woodward, Chairman, Oakland County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. A motion to receive and file, receive the communications moved by Commissioner Weipert, seconded by Commissioner McGillivray. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of receiving the communication, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Let the record reflect that the communications are adopted unanimously. This will bring us to the first public comment of tonight's meeting. This is the opportunity for members of the public to speak on items on the agenda, and that would be on the consent agenda or the regular agenda. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Come to the podium at the back of the room here, give your name and community. Again, keep your comments to 3 minutes so that anyone who wants to speak, we can get through as quickly as possible. There will be a second public comment at the end of the meeting. This is a relatively short agenda, so we'll get to that fairly quickly to speak on any other topic. But this is the first part of public comment that's about items on the agenda. So I know a couple people signed up, so I'll call on these first, and then anybody else who would like to speak on the first public comment, and I'll welcome Kathleen Kennedy.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kathleen Kennedy from Lake Orion. And once again, I'm dismayed by all the things that get added to the agenda right before the meeting. I actually oppose the fact that Mr. Woodward seems it's okay to go against the rules and simply approve things by himself and calm a communication. So now we have a child's savings trust fund, and it's paid for by workforce development, which apparently is okay for the immigrants, according to a prior finance meeting. So we have that. That's inappropriate. Supplemental, you did a COVID supplemental without having approval. Same thing, December 9th. Economic development, you're adding to the vets, but we already had 117 in advertising out of the 497 vet. So you're adding another 48 for more advertising, and the 50 for veterans hiring is actually developed software. Has nothing to do with hiring vets. So it's shameful how much advertising. We need to FOIA that team to make sure how much advertising from each of these grants is being wasted by this county. And then you actually go around, you're changing the entire system for IT so we no longer have any documents that we can FOIA. And then lo and behold, the parks under Mr. Ward, apparently he is now a commissioner property owner. I don't understand how every single document in the parks agreement and rules has changed the parks from a public property owned by the public to commission property. And it was requested in writing by one of our citizens that all that be fixed. None of it was fixed. It all is saying that all the parks are commission property, not public property. This is shameful. The disgraceful behavior you do with our citizens. And then to find the only public safety item on there is the helicopters, so that darn well better pass. I don't see the 3-year contract for the parks that the sheriff department should have had back in December, on December 9th when all the other budgets were finalized. But oh no, we have a new manager. We can't finalize for parks. Doesn't matter that he was the board's person before, so he probably negotiated the contracts for all we know. So it's really offensive that you don't bother to put the things that the people care about on the agenda, like the parks sheriff contracts, overtime authorization for those sheriffs. How come they only had weekends only through January, if my recollection is right? That's despicable. And now you want to make permanent 2 election people to count ballots when our own Secretary of State was convicted of not doing the following election laws. I have the case number, but I don't think I have time to find it. But it was an actual case in March 9th of 2020. So they didn't bother to verify the signatures on any of the mail-in ballots. But we're going to make it a permanent basis to count in our county. And we haven't even finished the canvassing. There's ongoing canvassing right now in Oakland County. And it's not completed yet, but the updates indicate we might be 7% phantom votes in Oakland County. So to put anything for election through without that being finalized is unacceptable to citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we got Sandra Carolyn.
Yes, Sandra from Novi. I think I'm going to let Catherine's statements stand, and hopefully they can sink in. I'll save mine for a more important statement later.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak during this first public comment on any items on the agenda? See none. I will close public comment, and that will bring us to reports of standing committee. And the first item up is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to Moved by Commissioner Lubes, seconded by Commissioner Cavell. Any discussion on the consent agenda? I don't see any, but I feel just, there is some information that was just shared that was so blatantly false during public comment that I think needs to be addressed. One, the grant acceptance is a grant application going through. We do not have the money. We're putting forth an application to see if we can get money to actually build children's savings accounts for kids. If we get it, it will come through this board for acceptance. We'll develop a program as it follows from there. As it relates to parks, the parks are the public body. It's actually a division of the Board of Commissioners. The Parks and Rec Commission is the body that oversees it. It is the entity that's in charge of managing it. It is the way it has always been. Nothing has changed. On overtime, this board has always stepped up to make certain that our officers, as well as other employees that have had to put in the extra time or to deal with the challenges that COVID or recruitment has, and put through double overtime. Overtime exists for everybody. We put on additional overtime to make it a little bit easier on the weekends, so it didn't result in forced overtime for many of our officers. And as it relates to the election positions, Oakland County in 2020 launched a absentee ballot counting process. We processed more ballots, over I believe like 100,000 ballots, had those results ready by 8:30 of election day and posted. It was incredibly efficient. The local communities all across Oakland County were all invited to participate. So to have trained individuals run this, it needed additional staff capacity, and these positions are to ensure that we can continue to do that. And it worked. It was award-winning and made certain that all the votes were counted and certified by our Oakland County Board of Canvassers, which is an equal bipartisan body. So I needed to address those comments that were completely false, and everything else is captured in the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, will you prompt the vote on adoption of the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, you have 20 yeas, 0 nays.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The consent agenda is adopted. That will now move us to our regular agenda, and I believe most of the items were taken up at the consent agenda. I think public health and safety, there's one item. And so I will call on the chair, the Honorable Commissioner Penny Lubes.
Thank you, Chair. We have one item, miscellaneous resolution from the Sheriff's Office, a budget amendment appropriating funding to replace and upgrade airborne video observation systems for the helicopters.
This moved by Commissioner Lubes, seconded by Commissioner Spiz. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Mr. Clerk, will you please prompt the vote?
Mr. Chair, you have 19 yeas, 1 nay.
Sufficient number voting in the affirmative. The resolution is adopted. Commissioner Lubes?
That concludes everything I have today. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'll move us to reports of special committees. There are none. Special order of business, none. Unfinished business, none. They'll move us to new and miscellaneous business, and I believe that we have a couple resolutions to be introduced. First, I will call on Commissioner.
Don't call on me
first. Okay. Commissioner Kowal. Commissioner Kowal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a resolution, Board of Commissioners, in support of human trafficking, House Bills 4091 to 4113 and 4214 to 4215. I ask that this be referred to Lago.
Referred without objection. Commissioner, you ready?
Yep.
Commissioner Gershenson.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce resolution appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds to address the impact of COVID-19 on early childhood education staffing supply in Oakland County in partnership with United Way for Southeastern Michigan, referred to EGGI.
Referred without objection. I believe those were the only two resolutions. Is there any other resolutions for introduction? Seeing none, I'll move us to announcements. Are there any announcements? Commissioner Charles or Jackson, do you want to make an announcement of the news that was unveiled today? Sorry. Oh, please. I think it's newsworthy.
Yes.
It happened today. It's
Yes.
The day's not over.
Right, this did happen today, so it's the most recent history. Today, the Business Navigator program was unveiled today by our County Executive, Dave Culture, in the city of Southfield at the Centropolis Business Accelerator. These business navigators will be going out to our individual communities as a force to help people navigate just beginning to get into the entrepreneurship and small business arena. One thing about it that we know, the one-stop shop recently closed, and so we had a lot of constituents that were calling us concerning that space and needing that space and wondering why that space was going to go away. So Sean Carlson, our new deputy for economic development, and he listened to our concerns. We actually he convened 2 meetings with Commissioner Charles, Commissioner Powell, and myself, and Chair Woodward to discuss this issue and concerns of our community. So now, proud to say Oakland County has a Business Navigator program specialized. These are specialists who specialize in business generation and incubator services to help birth small business and help support small business. And County Executive Culture will be unveiling more about the program in his State of the County address next week.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent. No, I think it was a great event. I mean, I think it highlighted and a reminder of the 36,000 of 39,000 businesses in Oakland County are small businesses with less than 50 employees. And this group is going to be tasked by doing, the door-to-door, identifying gaps and barriers to, that are impede the ability for our small businesses all across Oakland County to grow. So I'm very excited to hear the great news, and this board was very honored to help support the creation of this program, and we look forward to some great results. Any additional announcements? See none. That'll bring us to the second public comment. This is the opportunity for any member of the public to come and speak on any topic that they would wish. We again like to follow the same general rules. Please keep your comment to 3 minutes. Direct your comments to me. If you come to the podium, introduce yourself and community where you're from, and we've got a little timer up here to help keep you on task here. So I will call on Tasha Shergin. Welcome.
I figured it was me because there was no one else here when I signed up. Tasha Shergin from Clarkston. So I started attending back last May when we were still virtual, and now we're live. It's nice to see some commissioners have removed their mask, and I love that the partitions are down, so moving in the right direction. It's very concerning to me the direction that our county is going in. And as I've been here, and many of you see, I attend the LAGO meetings, I attend the Public Health and Safety Committee meetings, I attend the commissioners' meetings, and the more I see the way our money's being spent, I, as a citizen, do not approve of it. The only thing I know to do is to get involved. Instead of worrying, I take action. And it's going to be a very interesting year because we are looking to replace commissioners that are not supporting what the citizens are asking for. So some of you, I am appreciating you. I love working with you. I look forward to working with you in the future. Some of you, I'm coming after your seat. We are recruiting candidates, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going this year.
Hi, I'm Lucas Lisicki. I wanted to speak tonight in favor of a countywide opt-in to the SMART system because the current fragmented state of transit service in Oakland County makes it needlessly difficult to get around Metro Detroit without an automobile. Particularly nowadays with astronomical insurance costs and rising fuel prices, a lot of us would appreciate some car-free transportation options. I'm from Farmington Hills. I'm lucky enough to live within a mile of a SMART route. I use that a lot particularly to get to OCC, but there are a lot of places that I can go without a car, and I think it's kind of ludicrous that 12 Oaks Mall isn't one of those. It's just a few miles down the road. The existing Route 740 could easily get there if not for Novi saying in the 1995 mass opt-outs, we don't need SMART, and the bus just stopping at the Farmington Hills border and turning around and heading east. I've spoken to people who live in Detroit, take a 2-hour bus ride to the Farmington Hills border, and walk the last few miles to their jobs at and around 12 Oaks because there isn't service there. And another example is, I'm an OCC student. Right now I can get to 4 of the campuses. That might go down to 3, depending on how Auburn Hills goes. But the glaring omission right now is Highland Lakes up at Cooley Lake and, Cooley Lake and Union Lake. And it's pretty much off limits to anybody who doesn't have a car. I think it'd be nice if us OCC students could have some bus service to get there. Now, the gaps in the transit system with opt-outs here in Oakland County are a barrier to introducing new corridors with high-capacity service. One in particular I've always thought would be a good idea would be Auburn Road to Orchard Lake. And a lot of those communities along that route are already opted in, but there are a few opt-outs like Kego Harbor, Orchard Lake Village, Rochester Hills, and now Auburn Hills, depending on how that goes, that would create an invisible barrier. So a countywide opt-in would allow for corridors around Oakland County, and I think expanding transit service is going to be vital to our fight with climate change, reducing transportation emissions, and especially with higher gas prices, insurance prices not showing any sign of falling fast. A lot of us are going to want to get around without cars, and a countywide opt-in would just make it that much easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Next up, Megan Owens.
Hello, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to comment here today. I would like to present for you a joint letter signed by 200 people from across the county and to some extent across the region on the same topic as the last commenter. Everyone, should be able to get where they need to go. To ensure everyone in Oakland County can thrive, regardless of whether they drive, Oakland County needs to ensure affordable, sustainable transportation options countywide. I urge you, our Oakland County leaders, to do everything within your power to expand transit and mobility services throughout the county and connecting to the whole region. That includes placing transit funding on the countywide ballot in 2022 so people can make the choice to invest in mobility options that work for everyone. When asking people if they wanted to sign this, a number of people shared additional comments, and I'll take just a moment. Obviously, a lot of people can't make it out here in person, but I wanted to share some of the things that they said. Harper in Rochester said, at 62, I can imagine a time when driving will be difficult for me. Why should I give up mobility and access to things like my church, the OPC, and shopping? Please work to expand seamless public transit for all citizens. Lori in Milford simply said, when one does not drive, one still has to thrive. Haley in Troy, citizens deserve access to safe, quality public transportation. Please keep and add additional public transit in Oakland County. Now, I will say, while the majority were Oakland County residents, there were a number of people who signed it who were not residents, but Hannah in Detroit said, I support Oakland County going all in on transit so that I can visit my family in Lake Orion, go shopping in Novi, and take advantage of all the wonderful things Oakland County has to offer. Similarly, Kristen grew up in northern Oakland County, but as a person bound in a wheelchair for life, she moved out of northern Oakland County. And she said people with disabilities have no choice but to rely on transit to get to the places they need to go. Not being able to drive or pay for costly transportation services shouldn't deprive them of their mobility and freedom of movement. Oakland County's patchwork public transit system keeps people imprisoned in their own homes. It's time Oakland County went all in for transit. There's a number of other comments. These will all be shared with you probably tomorrow morning because I couldn't get my printer to print them all. And I would also really appreciate the opportunity to meet with each one of you to talk about what do your communities need in the way of transit and mobility services, and how can we engage in a dialogue over the course of this spring and summer about how we can best serve all of the different needs across all of Oakland County. Because certainly every community is a little different, but every community has needs for mobility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sandra, I'll call you back up. Sandra Carolyn.
Somebody said they liked my poem from last time, so I'm going to do that again. But before I say that, in addressing the issue that was just discussed, I'd like to point out that public transit, planes, trains, and buses were denied. I was denied access to them because I chose not to wear a mask. And so, you know, that needs to be addressed. If you're going to have a public transit system, it needs to service all of the people, even if they have a different viewpoint. So, down to more important things. We are soldiers. We have a captain. This is a war. Eternal souls of men are the spoils. What is our lifetime for? Being a tool in the hands of the general, used to set men free, being equipped and equipping others for the work of the ministry. This is no time to go on leave now. We see the coming night. So we must work and toil in the vineyard, and we must war and fight. Each has his place in the plans for the battle. Some on the front lines die. God has his reinforcements coming. Don't worry about when or why. Follow the Son who took his part in the conflict, shedding his blood on the cross. Listen for the voice of your faithful leader. Do not forget who's the boss. Unredeemed souls are not enemy soldiers. They've been drafted into the fight. Even our weapons, not carnal, are mighty, but not through our own strength or might. Most soldiers fight in a war they can't win. We in the war we can't lose. Even in death, resurrection will find us, if the right army we choose. And then this was from this morning. The sun shines through the clouds of war. Someday there'll be no pain. For those who kneel before the cross, the blood removes the stain. The lawlessness of evil men who now wax worse and worse, whose fate was sealed in Eden's plot, where Eve and Adam chose the curse. The blessings God had poured on them were traded for the lie. When Satan slithered up and said, "Thou shalt not surely die," the serpent's tactics are unchanged, though centuries have passed, and men today still listen to that Eden's violent blast. But will you hear the still small voice that speaks now in this room? Surrender your rebellious heart. Embrace the truth of empty tomb. That's the most important things I've said at this microphone. And I thought last month when I was here and I addressed issues, all of these issues don't matter, because if one of you dies before the next meeting, what's going to matter is that you're ready to face that. And I've had friends dying and people who thought they were protected and they weren't ready. So I just want to make that statement because it's important and I care about each and every one of you. And I know that some of you are ready, some of you even who are on the other side from me.
Thank you, Carolyn. Kathleen Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy from Lake Orion. I really appreciate the people from Detroit that are coming here to make sure that we know how to spend our money for their benefit. I actually am a little concerned that we have public comment and you didn't identify yourself as a person from Detroit. But thank you for your opinion. We do appreciate it. We actually reviewed that before. That's how she signed in. So, anyway, the regional transit is not a very good idea, never was. And the fact that this was studied before and the conclusion was you don't have roads fixed yet. Why would you create an entire system to maintain as well? And that is still the case. And there is nothing that can justify that. And post-COVID, it's even worse. People don't want to go on mass transit now, in case you haven't figured it out. That is actually a flip to the opposite. So that is not a good idea. The fact that this board seems to be okay spending millions and millions of dollars without accountability is shocking to me. I've never managed my budgets that way. I always budget under what I earn. And the fact that we had a deficit at the end of December that was covered with other money we had in the coffers, of course, but 64 million off. You know, you probably saw the article about Birmingham schools was 11 million off in their budget revenue estimates. Well, Oakland County was 64 million off in their budget revenue. It didn't hit the news, but it's in the December 6th finance budget. I think it was December 9th when it was applied or approved formally. But these are things that regular people, we know we can't spend more than what we earn. That's a basic concept. But we're training people to think that they are entitled to things that they can't afford to support anyway. The Attainable Housing Trust, that's like a REIT that a government put together. How is that even legal? People won't be able to maintain whatever you give them if they haven't earned it themselves because they haven't learned how to earn it and maintain it to begin with. Doesn't matter, you know, people have worked hard. Most of the people I know, they started out in Detroit or other communities, but they saved their money, they spent less than what they earned, and they invested, and they were able to come to this community and make it a great community. The fact that we have zoning that is now obliterating acres in Lake Orion, or proposed to obliterate acres for high-density housing, when we don't need any housing at all. There's so many vacancies, they haven't even done an inventory of the businesses and the other properties that are actually vacant. That needs to be dealt with, and not all this extra housing for low income to make these attainable trust things achievable. A savings account for children. Why are we using workforce development funds to create a savings account for children? This makes no sense. This is how the entire systems get wrong. Social Security is weaker because they took money from that to pay for the housing fiascos in the 70s. We are repeating history. It's very disastrous. That's what's created the inflation. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Anybody else that would like to speak during public comment? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll declare the second public comment closed. And that will bring us to the end of this meeting, where we'll stand adjourned to the next scheduled meeting of the 24th, or the call of the chair. And for commissioners, I know staff is working on, we might have to make an adjustment on that to accommodate some schedules. So stay tuned, we'll get that figured out. But we'll see everyone. Meeting adjourned.